And Khushi, can I make you the co-host? Mm, all right. So before we start today's workshop, those who were there in the previous workshops, can you share in the chat how what we have done, like the identity part, the story part, the evidence part, like in a line or two, how that has helped you over these weeks? Like anything that you would like to share in the chat, that would be great. And those who are joining, Simon, I think you're joining this for the first time. Welcome. Chiffon, you're also joining for the first time, so welcome. So these workshops, you don't have to do the previous workshop to do this workshop, or like there is no such thing, but we are trying to compound things. So the more we attend, the more we like keep getting better. That's the idea. And today I want to focus on compounding, so it will make more sense. Hi, Jane. Jane, is this your first workshop with me?
Yes, it is.
All
Thanks.
right.
Good to see
All right.
you.
Welcome. Welcome. Hey, Martina. Martina, for you also, this is the first time?
Mm, no, no, I have already participated. In this
All.
particular workshop, yes, it's the first one. Sorry, but
Mhm.
I did other workshops in the group.
All right. All right. Cool. So a few things. Okay. Are you guys sharing how the concepts that we have worked on, the identity, the story, anyone who has attended the workshop earlier, how they have helped you or what challenges you have faced in that, if you can share in the chat. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking of working on today in the meanwhile. Um, so those who are new also, can you share in chat when I say these words, what do they mean to you? And you can say, I don't understand, or these are alien terms. But if I talk about having a systemic advantage in your work or in your project or in your life, what does that mean to you? A systemic advantage. And everyone can share, like, what do they understand? Understanding that all things have underlying systems. Okay. Mhm. Of the systems we want to engage with, operate professionally and personally, things are being better every time, every step of working with the system, not against it. Systems working to the advantage. Okay, I'm learning to see the system. All right. All right. Um, Next, do you see? Can I move on to the next question? Because what my goal is by the end of this hour, I want to plant seeds for these terms, these thinking in your life and in your projects. So you start asking, how can I have a systemic advantage here? I am doing this because it will give me a systemic advantage. So that's the goal with me today here, right? So my next question is like, uh, when I say the word compounding, how much does that word come into your thought process when you're working on your project? When you're doing anything, when you're taking action or planning or strategizing, whatever, like how much does compounding come to your mind? And if you say, I'm not sure what compounding means, that's great. Like it's okay. There's no worry about it. Getting more of what is fixed on. Okay. All right. Should we keep going? Yeah. Third, and these are all interrelated words, but I'm just giving you one by one. And so my goal here is that then we are becoming more comfortable and these become part of our shared vocabulary as we keep going. Then I would say is how much time, effort, energy do we intentionally put in building assets in our project? Again, the word is asset now. So, asset building, how much time, energy, and attention are we saying, oh, this week I'm investing in building this asset? It could be a hard asset, it could be a soft asset. And again, it could be that this is foreign for you guys, so that's also okay. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. System of evaluation. All right. Hmm. All right. So we'll just try. And so you don't have to use assets, you don't have to use compounding, you don't have to. But what would help is that you understand, you see, and then say, oh, I don't want this. Right. So there's no have to or shoulding here, but the lack of awareness is not helpful. Is that making sense? Yeah.
Did you say the
Well,
lack of awareness is what?
it's not helpful. Like if we don't know how it works, if we know how it works and then we say we don't want to use that, we want to do this way. That's it. But
Absolutely.
if you
Thank
don't,
you.
yeah, yeah. All right. The last one for now. How many of you understand the term feedback loops? When you are thinking feedback loops, when you're thinking of your project, when you're thinking of your work, when you're thinking of what you're spending your time, energy, attention, feedback loops is different from feedback. So we're talking about feedback loops. How much of that is going on when you're putting your time, energy, attention in your work? And again, the answer can be I don't understand feedback loops. I don't even think about them. What are they? Yeah, Kushi.
Can you like explain the difference between feedback and feedback loop?
All right. Um, so the example Seth uses, right? I'm using the same example, right? And anything I'm teaching here is me teaching here. So this is not Seth teaching here, or I'm not talking on behalf of Seth, just like people who are joining. You know. So like if feedback loop is a loop, right? If we see the infinity sign, right? So we can keep going in that infinity sign, and every time we take a route through that, something happens, right? So let's say you invest, you put up a system in your financial thing where $100 are taken from your bank account and put it in a savings account in a like a fixed deposit or something, right? So every time that $100 goes, it earns interest. That interest earns more interest. That interest earns more interest. That interest earns more interest. That interest. So every time we are going through that cycle, it keeps compounding. That's a feedback loop, right? The example that Seth uses is that of a microphone, right? When someone puts a microphone very close to them, what happens is the noise from the speaker goes back into the microphone and makes it louder, and then that becomes louder, and then and so it reaches the point where it's a very screeching noise, and then you remove it, and the feedback loop diminishes, right? Feedback loops are also the reason that if someone is struggling with debt, it's challenging to get out of debt because you're paying interest, and then then it compounds in the other side. Like, is this making sense, Kushi? So the system the system is giving a feedback with each loop. So it's not a feedback that I'm taking this workshop and you're giving me a feedback, right? But with each workshop, if we are, let's say, getting better 1%, right? So if you attended the previous workshop, there is some learning from there that is compounding with this workshop, that is compounding with the next workshop, that is compounding with the next workshop. That is a feedback. Is this making sense to some extent? Yeah. All right. Um, so where are we? All right. Is this somewhat clear? Difference between feedback and feedback loop, right? So let me talk about why I have picked this topic today to to take a session on this and how can this help us in moving forward, right? So if you look at businesses don't do linear things as much as possible, right? What is a linear thing? A linear thing is you have a exam, you study for the exam, you give the exam, you clear the exam, you forget whatever you studied, done. What's the next exam, right? You have a job, you work for the month, you get the salary for this month. The next month they say, now you have to work again. Your work from the previous month is not going to give you salary this month, right? It's linear. You do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. You do this, you get this, right? And all our training for most of us has been linear in education, in career, in a lot of aspects, right? And we see linear. Okay, we give this, we get this. We give this, we get this, right? And that also leads to the hustle mode where we're like, oh, I will work hard, so I will give this in order to get this, right? But we are not talking about I did this in January and it gave me a return in September. I did this in 2025 and it's giving me something in 2030, right? I did something in the 2020s that's giving me something in the 2040s. That's the mindset shift. Like we have talked about the circle of us and circle of now. So now I'm getting more tactical about it as to like strategic, but also what can we do to expand our circle of now? Is this making some sense? Like the linear thinking versus the compounding thinking or the systemic advantage thinking, right? So one of the very crude example, if I can share with you, right? If a person goes to a bank and says, I will invest $1,000, right? And let's say the bank is giving you 10% interest rate, right? There are two cases, right? One, the person can say that every year give me the interest. Like so, if you are giving me $100, just give me the $100 every year, right? And that seems very tempting because I'm investing $1,000, I get $100 this year, I got $100 this year. In 10 years, I have actually gotten my $1,000 and also have my $1,000 with me. Like this thinking, we can identify with very quickly. And it seems smart, right? Also, this kind of thinking works a lot where the trust levels are low. Where trust levels are low, we want the return fast. That $100 cash in hand is better than the bank saying, oh, just leave your $100 with me and I'll pay you interest over that. Are you getting? So compounding requires trust. Systemic advantage requires trust, right? It goes away from that immediate mindset. I do something and get something immediately to I do something, I do something, I do something, and that builds an asset that starts paying over time. How are we guys doing so far? Can you share in chat? Is this making sense? Confusing? Too much? Or any thoughts or questions that are coming to mind? All right, cool. So, what was the first term that we started with? Systemic advantage, right? What does a systemic advantage mean? So we are not talking about how to handle systems that are already there. That's part of strategy. That's not what we are talking about today. We are talking about how do we create systemic advantage. All right. So I'm going to give you a crude example, and it might have technical flaws and whatever, but the idea is not to teach you about health, but to help you understand systemic advantage. All right. So in case there is debate about my thought process, please just try to understand the underlying phenomena. Right. So I've been working on my health journey over the last 6, 8 months, right? And there were two paths that were offered to me. So one was calorie counting. A dietitian said you go buy this weighing machine. Every time you eat, you put this, note the weight, put it in an app, see the calories. And if you eat less calories than you consume, like over time, you will lose weight. And it might work. It might work. It's not my thing. And I see that as a linear process. Why is it a linear process? Because if I eat less today, it helps me today. If I eat less tomorrow, it helps me tomorrow. But if I eat a lot a few weeks later, it doesn't help. It doesn't say, oh, because you ate less 2 weeks ago, today you eat more, it's okay. Like, no. Is this making sense? Yes. The other approach, which then I did some research and I was like, okay, what is the systemic advantage? And I try to understand how the body creates fat, what is the scientific process behind creating fat, and what is the scientific process behind burning fat. And the one thing where I saw like there is a systemic advantage is a person who has more muscles slows down the fat, like slows down the fat consumption, like fat creation, or accelerates the fat consumption, like just by having that muscle block in the middle of the process. So I started gymming and not like just started gymming over time, build muscles, right? So what is happening now, even if I don't go to the gym for a month, or sorry, for a week, because I'm in a low mode and I'm eating junk, still my body is like, oh, but the muscles are already there. The muscles that you have built are already there. So they will consume some of that extra calories that you're doing. And so you have a systemic advantage. It's not a hustle every time. Is this making some sense? I don't know if this is a good example or a bad example. Are you getting a linear thing where every time you have to show up, every time? And because you showed up 2 months ago, doesn't help you today. But whereas when we are looking at systemic advantage, because you created the system, because you are having this asset now, it's giving you an advantage. Are we making sense? Yeah. So as freelancers, as entrepreneurs, as even if you are working on a job, like right now, most of us are our own bosses. Like nobody is coming in and telling do 1, 2, 3. Like it's up to us, right? And if we don't have that thought process of how do I invest some time this week to build assets that will give me returns over time, what that does is we are constantly in hustle mode. We are constantly in linear mode. We are constantly like, oh, I can't pay my bills this month. You are talking about 3 months later. Let me just do whatever can pay the bills this month. So I'm not saying don't do that. Please do whatever you have to do in order to pay the bills. But having this thought, having this framework, having this mindset. Can we go deeper into this, more practical? Any thoughts, questions, doubts, Khushi?
Oh, I don't know if I should ask this right now or what, but it's
Mhm,
like, for example, let's say I start a book club with
mhm,
few of my friends. Okay,
mhm,
so it's like since I am hosting that thing, now it
mhm.
feels like when you said about linearity, like I have to show up every time. That's why that book club, like the other members in the book club would show up. And once I back out, no one else is gonna show up. So does non-linearity also means that I have to plant such seeds that other members also show up as hosting that thing, or let's say if I am not there, that thing is working on its own? Like, does that include that also?
That's the asset creation mindset, right? Because the spectrum that I'm talking about, like I understand and we understand the job mindset, right? You don't show up for school today, you can't make the reason, but I showed up yesterday,
Mhm.
right? You
Yeah.
don't do your homework today, you can't say I did my homework last week, so why do you want my homework today? You don't show up for the office today, you can't say, oh, I showed up last week. Like, why do I have to show up today? That we know.
Mm.
That is our default. And that is our biggest challenge as freelancers, as self-employed people. That is our biggest challenge because, Jane, just a second, I'll explain this, then I'll take your question. Uh, because let's look at like McDonald's is not reinventing its logo every day. It's not
Mm.
reinventing its branding every day. It's saying, this is it. We have done the work. This is what you get. And based on that, they are getting the return again and again and again and again and again and again. Right? But as freelancers, when we are looking at clients, when we are looking at revenue, when we are looking at traction, right? And we are doing that without assets. Now, then we'll go into tangible, what kind of assets, what kind of compounding, what are the things that we can do? We'll go there. But when we are doing it without assets, what is happening is I work very, very hard to get Khushi as a client, but Khushi doesn't tell anyone that she's a client. And so to get Karen as a client, then I work very, very hard to get Karen as a client, but now Karen also doesn't tell anyone. And so I am just doing linearly
Mm.
this thing, right? But today, let's say Nishtha is here because Khushi invited Nishtha. Right. So that is creating some sort of compounding in this workshop. Now, I am delivering some value, but that thing will keep getting better over time. Is it making sense, Kushi? Yeah. Jane?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this workshop that we're in now, because I think
Mhm,
that over time I have found that Purple
mhm.
is, as I learn the platform, as I try things, I'm understanding how to interact virtually. And as I've met new people, I get ideas about how to be helpful and be more vital in the world.
Yeah.
And occasionally, I mean, last week I attended a meeting,
Mhm.
and there's a real prospect for Steve to maybe give his software to my municipality or
Yeah.
become a client. So
Mhm.
that's, to me, like a really an example of compounding, but it's kind of there's an investment, and the
Yeah.
investment isn't always, it's not linear, like, okay, I'm gonna go cook an omelet, I have to get the eggs,
Yeah.
I have to put the thing on the fire. What we're doing now is difficult because you don't know the outcome necessarily. We just have to trust, like you said. We have to
Yeah.
trust that we're making an investment and that it could pay off for us later.
Yeah. And we are just scratching the surface here. We are just 25 minutes into this workshop where we started from almost everyone saying, what are these terms? I don't even think about them. Are they even relevant to my work? I don't have time for these terms. Like, so we are just here. So we are not even getting to a point where uh, it's there, but we are moving forward. Donovan, you have to share something?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to circle back to the idea of the showing up as an entrepreneur and doing it consistently, and you can't have your homework, skipped
Mm-hmm.
yesterday or vice versa. You did it today. As a high school counselor, I learned the whole 4-year system, like the 4-year cycle, like the back of my hand. But if I tried to hand
Hmm.
it to kids on a silver platter, they would just like knock it out of my hand and stomp on it. But as a
Yeah.
dad, what I noticed, my three daughters didn't need the rocket science of the 4-year cycle either, but what they did
Mhm.
need is good attendance. Only one of the three has ever missed a day of high school, and one of them's
Mhm.
already graduated. And that is linear. They were there all the days, but what happens as a school counselor is if they miss a day and miss the homework, it stacks up. And that seems
Yeah.
linear too, a stack of homework. But
Yeah.
the stress and the mental health factor of missing school and letting things pile up is not linear. It ends up really
Yeah.
hurting you. And the same thing with just showing up. It's like,
Yeah.
just show up, and you never run
Yeah.
into that debt problem. And
Yeah.
instead, you've got probably more than a linear advantage on
Yeah.
the investment of just showing up.
Yeah. So, the thing here is a lot of systems benefit because we don't think systematically, because we are thinking linear. A lot of businesses profit because we don't think like, let's say there is a choice. I don't know if I'm giving good examples of that. So, but let's say there's a choice between spending time an hour watching Instagram reels, which are very linear, right, versus reading a book, right? Now, if you're reading a book, you might think of an idea. That idea might compound. That idea might lead to more ideas, might lead to conversations, might lead to, you know, new things in your life, but the culture is forcefully pushing us towards more linear things. Oh, if someone I asked after 1 hour of watching Reels, tell me something interesting. They don't have anything interesting to share, right? So I'm just giving this one example of this. Is this making sense? Should we move ahead then? All right. So let's do a small breakout room. I just want you to go there, talk about compounding with each other. Is it making sense? Not making sense? It's not a long breakout room, but I just want you to break the lecture mode of this. And once we come back, then we'll do some writing and get deeper into tangible assets that we can work on. Is this making sense? Yes, no, maybe? Yeah. So let me create breakout room, and I'm giving you 6 minutes. It's a short breakout room. One thing in my breakout room, in my workshops, if you're new, uh, the discuss the things we are discussing. So discuss compounding, systemic advantage, all these things. The warm up things like what do you do, what are you working on, that you can do after the workshop, or that you can connect with each other on Zoom afterwards. But these workshops, because we have only 60 minutes, we want the breakout rooms to be very focused. Is it making sense? Yes, no? Cool. I'll see you guys in 6 minutes. Um, recording. Can you guys share in chat what's making sense about these terms now? Systemic advantage, compounding, like anything that's resonating with you now in one line or two. Or you can just share, like you're starting to get it, or so in chat, if you can share where are you at with the terms I mentioned in the beginning, systemic advantage, compounding. Is it making some sense? Is it still confusing? Uh, yeah, all right, makes sense. All right, cool. So helpful. All right. So let's do one thing. Let's talk about decision making. All right. And we'll do separate workshops on decision making where we'll go deep and visceral into decision making. But what I want to talk about right now is how much time, energy, and attention we spend in making similar decisions over and over and over again. Right. Like, one example I give you, I started writing a daily blog 5 years ago almost. And I started because I was listening to Seth talking to Tim Ferriss on a podcast, and he was talking about why he writes a daily blog. And so Tim is asking Seth, but like, how do you do that? That's too much. That's like this, that, the same questions that everyone asks, like, how can you write a daily blog? And Seth said, it was just one decision. Once I see myself as a person who writes a blog every day, I don't have to decide every day if I have to write today, because today is a new day and I'm a person who writes every day. So I write, right? I'll tell you how this will link to the systemic advantage thing, especially as a freelancer, right? But once you make some hard decisions, those recurring decisions that drain a lot of your energy can just go away. Then the question is not, do I write a blog today or not? The question is, what do I write today? Very different question, right? But if the question remains, do I write a blog every day? Do I write a blog today? Do I write? Then you can't write. Then, like after 1500 days of writing, I know that if that question stays, then I can't write. Is this making some sense? Yes, no, maybe. Can you also see this in terms of reaching out to clients, doing prospecting, figuring out when do you make your sales call or sales email or whatever, right? If you have a system, and we'll work on building those systems as a community also, but if you have a system that every Monday, when I sit down, I spend 1 hour making a list of potential clients I can reach out to this week. Then you don't have to decide every Monday if you are going to do that. And so every week you will have an abundance of clients to reach out during the week. Are you getting the systemic advantage that compounds over time? So in 12 weeks, you would know, your brain would know that it's Monday and it's 9:30 a.m. And so I have to sit down and make a list, go to the whiteboard and just write random names who I can reach out to or whatever. Like, are you getting the systemic advantage kind of thing? Whereas it's Saturday afternoon, you're sitting with your friends, you're trying to have a good time, and then in your head it's like, but I had to reach out to that client. I haven't reached out. What if I don't have a client? Maybe I should just go and open my laptop and, you know, is this making some sense? Yes, no, maybe. Right? So systems, we are coming back to systems here, right? That keep giving us advantage. We decide once, and over time, it keeps compounding and keeps making our life easier. With me, yes, no, maybe, especially with the hard things that we need to do. All right. So, yeah, Kush.
Sorry if it feels like I'm asking a lot of questions.
No, please do.
When we talk, like you said that, for example, that I'm sitting at 9:30 a.m. every morning and reaching out to one client. So when we talk about creating systems in place, how different it is from kind of, let's say, a task or the chores list we make. Like, is
I'll
it
come to that. I'll come to that. And
okay?
And here also, I'm not talking about sitting down daily. I'm just saying what is the minimum you need to do. And minimum is the keyword here, right? What is the minimum that you need to do that over time will build a systemic advantage for you, right? It's linear is always about maximum. Linear thinking is never about minimum. How can I get the most out of this week? How can I get the most out of today? How can I, you know, get the most out of this project, get the most out of this interaction. It doesn't think, because it doesn't need to sustain over time, right? I remember a few months ago, I was having a chat with my friend, and I told her, like, I go to the gym 2 days a week, and if possible, I go the third day. But 2 days a week is something I'm able to manage. And she was like, "What? No. If you don't go 3 days a week, it doesn't work. You have to go 3 days a week." And I'm like, okay, cool. The thing is, she doesn't go to the gym. I go to the gym 2 days a week, right? Over time, by going 2 days a week, it has become easier for me to go the third day as well. But there was this initial thought when I started going to the gym that I should go daily, I should not miss a day, blah, 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 blah. But it's not sustainable over time. Is this making sense? Yes, no? And we are talking more than habits, right? Habits definitely create systems, but we are talking more than habits. Like today, my goal is not habits, because habits is one part of systemic advantage. So right now, my focus is not habits. We'll go into atomic habits and apply lessons from there. We'll do a separate workshop on habits, right? Especially your work habits, your freelancing habits. But today I want to talk about assets, systemic advantage. So what I want you to do is, in the chat, I want to write, like, share what comes to your mind when you think of assets, different kind of assets. And so just keep adding one and enter, one, enter. Just keep sending what comes to your mind when you think assets. Fitness, customers, good sleep, workshops. Okay. Think assets in the real world, assets, word of mouth. Okay. Books, more assets. What does property comes as an asset, skills, but go raw right now. Car is an asset, audience is an asset, synergy, right? Investments, right? Let's we'll come to the subtle ones later, but hard assets, cash is an asset, right? What are assets? Jewelry, okay, right? We'll come to time as an asset and all that. Technology can be an asset, right? Right. So I don't know how to show you this. How do I show you this? I want to show you my camera, but I'm thinking, how do I show you my camera? Because that's how you're seeing me. But I bought this Logitech camera, right, for like $50 or something. And before I bought this, every time I would take a workshop, I was worried how to adjust my laptop camera, how to adjust my iPhone camera. Is it working? Is it not working? All that, right? But ever since I bought this camera, I just log into the meeting and this camera is doing its thing, right? So one thing I want to sh- like help us understand from that is that assets, they start hiding under plain sight. Like Donovan is sitting on that chair, and that's an asset. He is just sitting on this chair. He's always had this chair, or you know, but if he had to attend this meeting, he can just go and sit on this chair. He's not thinking 10 times about the asset that he has. Are you guys getting, like, I want very raw understanding of assets before we get into the subtle understanding of, soft assets, hard assets, right? Technology, like buying a good laptop, is an asset every time you open it. If you have a slow laptop, right? If you shift to a good laptop, you know what an asset means, right? I had a Dell laptop that sucked, and every time I would open it, I would just cry. And then I bought a MacBook, and I was like, oh my God, life can be. And then 10 years, I didn't think about, like, what is a slow laptop? I forgot. Are you getting, like, although Apple is just going downhill now, but are you getting what I'm saying? Right? I bought a inverter some months ago, almost a year ago, which, like, we have power cuts in Goa. But once I got that fixed, when the power cut is there, my internet doesn't disconnect and suddenly, like if I'm hosting a Zoom call, I don't vanish, hopefully. But like again, once the asset is in place, I'm not thinking about it. But it keeps giving me returns over and over and over and over and over again. Whereas when we are facing challenges, when we are facing doing the linear thing, it's very visible. Are you getting the challenge here? This is subtle, right? This is subtle. Is this making sense? Yes, no, maybe. Can you also see the compounding? How if there is like if I bought this camera, right? Somebody would say, why do you need to buy that camera? Because it doesn't take too much time for you to set up your whatever iPhone camera or a tripod or whatever for one call. But then that happens in the next call and the next call and the next call and over 100 calls. That stress compounds. Is this making sense? What I'm saying? So let's come to your work now. All right. As entrepreneurs, as freelancers, what assets do you right now see before we go deeper into it? What assets do you right now see that can help you create this systemic advantage in your work? Just write. No right answer, no wrong answer. Just keep sharing in the chat, one asset at a time. Just processes. All right, very good. Processes is one. Keep sharing whatever comes to your mind. Blog or portfolio, relationships, network, workshops, automation, decisions, website, curriculum, podcast, workshops. Okay. Keep going. Team. Team is a big one, CT. Coffee chat, simplicity. Okay. Equipment, environment, time. Mhm. Okay. Hmm. Clothes. Clothes, I think, is a big one. You buy good pair of clothes and they keep giving you like returns over time. Every time you meet someone, the impression that it makes, the relations that it develops, right? Email list. But I'm not okay, cool. So let's talk about assets in your book. What do you think is the highest leverage asset? Like if you have this asset, there is hardly anything that compares to it. Which asset creates the highest leverage according to you? Again, no right, wrong answer. Just share what's coming to mind. Books. Okay, books are highly leveraged. Great. Network is there. Delegation. Okay. Mhm. Community team. Happy client. Donovan, you're getting there some point. Some knowledge. All right. Okay. Pause. Why are you guys in this workshop? One word. Why are you guys in this workshop? Learn, purpose, learn. Mhm. No, but learning you could get anywhere, right? Learning you could get anywhere. You could have watched a video, you could have like done a course. Why did you choose to spend your Monday morning or evening in this workshop? But Khushi, Saurabh, what, like, why? What is the asset here, right? And if I break that, you would not come the next week. Mhm. Trust. That's it. That's the highest leverage asset we can build, right? Why do you choose a particular brand over other brands? Because there is trust. When that trust weakens, you start looking at other brands, but still the trust is there. You stay with the brand? Why do you hang out with a set of people and not the other set of people? Because there's trust, right? If someone is attending this workshop after attending the previous workshop or attending many workshops with me, is because that trust is compounding, right? And if that trust breaks, then you will think 10 times before joining the next workshop. Is this making sense? Yes, no? Yeah, Martina, for you, it's curiosity because this is the first time for you. But let's say if you have the choice to join the next time, then the curiosity might have, like, curiosity is bringing you to the workshop for the first time, but the trust is what might bring you the next time, right? Is this making some sense? Right. Now, the thing I want to highlight here, and then there are other assets like skills, assets like reputation, assets like, you know, these are soft assets where like if I again, it comes down to trust. Do I trust this person's skills? Do I trust this person's, reputation? Right. And why am I talking about this is if we start looking at our work from that compass, if we say, I'm investing these hours in this week in order to build an asset of trust, asset of skill, asset of reliability, asset of reputation, right? Then I can do it with intent. Otherwise, I'm hoping that happens by accident. Like I will keep doing the linear thing, and by chance, my trust will compound. By chance, things will. Is this making sense? But when you do it with intent, you can actually double down. You can actually see who you are trying to serve, how you are trying to serve. And trust is difficult to earn. That's why the concept of smallest viable audience, again, we'll talk much more about that in a separate workshop on empathy. But that's why smallest viable audience matters. Because if you are trying to serve 30 clients who are disconnected, there is no compounding, right? I serve Eve, but Eve is disconnected from Simon. So whatever I do for Eve doesn't reach Simon. But if, let's say, we are all connected here, like the 14, 15 of us are connected. So if I create value for Eve, Simon sees this, and Simon, like those things compound. And so the circle of us expands, the circle of now expands, and it becomes ever so easier over time. So when Seth talks about the elegant strategy, when Seth talks about doing it without hustle, when Seth talks about like finding the wave and letting the wave help the surfer, we're talking about systemic advantages. Is this making sense or is this too much in one go? Right? So what one one question, one way to think about this is if you're investing time in anything, you can think if I do that 100 times, does that lead me to a place of advantage? Right? If I repeat this cycle 100 times, is this linear or is this going to give me 100 times the advantage or is it going to give me much more than that? Right? So you can start seeing the feedback loop, the infinity sign. If I keep driving, is it linear or is it compounding? Is the feedback loop making my advantage stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger? Right? And the feedback loops are also very powerful. If someone is like a scammer, they would never scam the same smallest viable audience. because as soon as you scam one person, everyone knows and you're out, right? So the positives and the negatives, everything compounds very fast. But if you build a reputation of a generous person who charges a lot but gives much more than they charge for, and if you delight your customers and your customers are connected to each other and you give them a reason to talk about you with their friends, it changes the whole game as a freelancer. And that's why, like, my whole idea here was to have you have this framework. Like at the end of the workshop, you have this framework. Is this linear? Is this compounding? Is this linear? Is this compounding? Is this linear? Is this compounding? How are you guys feeling? We have 3 minutes left and then we can take extra time. But if anyone wants to leave, they can leave also. But in chat, can you share how you're feeling about these concepts now? And then I'll share some readings for you. This is strategy is, I find like the more I read strategy, it's about this systemic advantage. Having a strategy means how do things become easier 6 months from now? They're not like if you're doing the hustle today and you're doing the hustle 6 months from now, it's not a strategy. Okay. All right, that will be insightful. All right. So start thinking about systemic advantages, right? Read about feedback loops. Yeah. Can you do one thing for me before you go? Tell me one challenge, or you can personal message me also, or you can share in the group chat also. But can you share what would you like help on in your work, in your project? What is the one thing that one or other things that you would like that will help you move forward so that I can keep that in mind when I'm designing next week's workshop? Or I can do it from my own sessions also, but personal doubts, okay, I can have a doubt session also if you guys want, like where we can just do a Q&A kind of thing that we can do. Cool. Anything else? How to write content that helps build assets. I would love to for you to think about this, Eve, in your dailies. Think, apply that thinking. What kind of content will compound and what kind of content will be linear, right? What kind of content will give you systemic advantage over time and what kind of content will just die with the week. So think about that. All right. Awesome. Thanks, Martina, for this feedback. Like that helps. It was shipping. All right. Not to show 1 day soon. All right, Nishta. Try and do less. Cool. All right. Sorry. Shofen. Shofen. Is that how you pronounce?
Shivom.
Siobhan. Think of chevron
Siobhan.
without the R. So Siobhan. It's a bit
Okay,
like chevron.
Siobhan.
Siobhan.
Okay,
Siobhan.
Siobhan. All right. All
Don't
right.
worry though. I
Siobhan.
don't worry. Thanks. I get
No,
called a lot
it's
worse.
all right. All right. Cool. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then we'll wrap up for today. So I'll be taking more workshops. I've been taking one a week, but we'll be adding more. So it might be 2 or 3 workshops a week. So you can join as many as you can or as many as you want. I'm thinking we'll cover concepts like systems, games, time in terms of strategy, right? So that we keep building a strategic thinking around our projects. I want to go deep into marketing concepts. So tension, status, affiliation, positioning, empathy, like going there so that we start hitting the nail on its head with our marketing. So I think strategy plus marketing will make a very strong uh, concoction for your projects, right? So which keeps getting better over time. Then The other two areas I'm thinking, one is project management. So defining your project, what is the specs, what is the timeline, what is the budget, and then being on the hook for that. So not like hustling and trying to ship or not shipping and all that, like getting into that kind of a space and decision making. Like these are the four things that I'm thinking of, like going in a loop. So we'll keep doing different things, but the idea is over time we build these skill sets and we build this way of thinking so that if we are in February right now, by June, July, these become second nature to us. Make sense? And our projects and our work starts, we have a shared vocabulary, we are like keeping each other on the hook. That's the idea. Does this make sense? Can you give me a yes, Y, N, or maybe M in the chat? Yeah. All right. And then I one more thing I want to do is to create some rituals for freelancers and entrepreneurs where on a weekly basis we are doing some growth practices. So like I was saying, like every Monday morning we are sitting and making a list of potential clients or working on a strategy or something. Like so that these are not like left to our own last minute mind. Like sometimes we are doing it, sometimes we are not, but we are sitting in groups of three and doing that. So those are the things I'm thinking as this evolves slowly. Just wanted to share that direction with you. All right. So I might take another workshop. I'm not sure if it will be Wednesday this week or Thursday. Otherwise, next Monday, same time, we'll do another workshop. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. If anyone wants to stay back and ask me anything, you can stay back. If anyone wants to leave, thank you so much for coming.